to not just to introduce them, to help them reshaping their knowledge about STEM, to inspire them for new people coming into the field of STEM, to introduce them to what STEM is, and so on and so forth. So we looked at what STEM is. We looked at what STEM is in two phases, for lack of words to at the moment. So we looked at it as in the phase of when we define it as an interdisciplinary approach. We looked at that in details. And then aside from it being an interdisciplinary approach to learning that, infuses all of those 4 subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, we also emphasize how that you are learning STEM to apply it to solve real-world problems, right? Not just problems that you make up in the class, right? You're not learning STEM just to answer or to pass an exam, even though passing an exam or having your kids answer those important exercises is very important. The main goal is that it is geared towards solving a real world problems that they can relate with, whether it's their immediate community or the global world at large. Did justice to that. Another thing we then looked at, we took a step forward to look at why STEM is important, right? We looked at the global significance of STEM and some of the advantages that STEM offers to anyone who has its experience, right? Global significance. And these are significance that you can, put to the test. You can do your own research, and I can guarantee you that you will definitely find that STEM is important globally, right? Many countries out there are constantly gearing their economy, education-wise, their private sector wise, towards STEM. Workers or employers want to employ workers with that STEM skills, right? With STEM skills, irrespective of the field that you find yourself, right? And then we brought it back to Nigeria. We also said that our government are doing their best. They've been doing their best for a while now, and they don't seem to have, taking a step backwards. They are still pushing as much as they can. We want them to still do more, I must say, right? But at the moment, they are doing their possible best to push the economy towards STEM. The statistics also that underlays this importance are also, very glaring, and they are sort of an indication for anyone to, want to take into consideration learning about STEM and practicing STEM, right? And then we wrapped up yesterday's class by looking at the skills that is developed through STEM, right? The skills that is developed through STEM, right? So while you may be here and you may not be teaching present, you may not be teaching any of these 4 core subject areas, whether it's science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. It doesn't mean that the skill of STEM no longer applies, right? The skills that you're going to learn, that your students are going to learn, engaging with STEM, are far more reaching than any other approach that you want to take in that subject of yours. Whether it be geography, history, social studies, Greek science, whatever the case may be, physics, chemistry, whatever the case may be, right? And so that was where we wrapped up yesterday's class. You can please let me know again in the comment section if I've missed anything, but I believe that is sort of like a quick summary of everything we were able to cover in that class. Now, for today's class, we want to look at project-based learning, right? And particularly, we want to look at project-based learning as per STEM, the role that project-based learning plays in STEM. One of our core thoughts, contemplations yesterday was that if STEM really is to solve real world problems, right? Problems that are realistic, that the student can relate to, that are authentic, then what better way, again, is there to solve this problem than using a teaching methodology that focuses on authentic problems, right? And so that's the reason why we are delving into project-based learning. And for today, and of course for tomorrow, we'll be, diving into project-based learning full-fledged. Right now, what is project-based learning? I made several allusions to it yesterday, right? The name already gives us an hint as to what it is. It's a learning methodology that is based on projects, right? It's a learning methodology that is based on projects, right? That gives us a good clue as to where, how best to understand what it is, right? Now, one of the key aspects of the definition of project-based learning is that it's that method that allows your learners, the students in your class, right, learn by actively engaging in real world and personally meaningful projects. They engage in real world problems, real world projects, and not just real world problems or projects and problems that are meaningful to them personally. It could be a problem even in their home, their respective homes, where they come from, right? There's no, it's not cast in stone that it has to be a project that affects the entire world globally. It doesn't have to be an SDG problem. It doesn't have to be a problem or a project that affects Nigeria as a whole or Lagos State as a whole. But it can be as little as a project or a problem that affects even, as little as, their home, right? We're going to see examples of this as the case may be. And I would argue that particularly in the rural areas or even in the public educational sector, where you have a whole lot of these students that are constantly battled with personal challenges, right? This really is a game changer for them, right? It is a game changer for them, right? They're going to gain knowledge and skills. Because I've heard teachers argue that sometimes project-based learning sort of focuses a whole lot on the project and not so much on the knowledge, the key knowledge that students have to grasp, or the key knowledge that the administrative arm of the educational sector demands, right? Whether it be your HOD that is demanding, just like I heard in some of the breakout rooms yesterday, right? HOD or people working, trying to monitor the teaching and learning in classes, saying, oh, we are not teaching what is in our tabs, what is on our tabs, and all of those things, right? It could be as far as even, the Ministry of Education coming for their regular inspection, and then they are hammering on you that, okay, you're focusing a whole lot on this project. Have you been able to cover the content likewise and things like that? No. So all of those things are not exactly the case, right? If you practice project-based learning well and you do justice to it, I mean, all of those things will be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue, I mean to say, right? The students are going to gain knowledge. Not only are they going to gain knowledge, they're also going to gain the skills. And they are going to do this by working on, they are going to gain this by working for an extended period of time. Right? They're going to gain this knowledge by working for an extended period of time to investigate, either they're investigating a particular problem, question, idea. They could be investigating or they could be responding, right, to a problem, idea, question, complex question now, or challenge, right? So they are going to gain skills doing project-based learning. They're also going to gain knowledge of the content of what you are teaching, all right? And how are they going to do this? They're going to do this by working for an extended period, right? An extended period. Now, I use the word extended period loosely, right? Because for you, extended period can mean 2 weeks, right? For some others, extended period can mean 6 weeks, half of the term. For some others, extended period can be the entire term, right? So that's in that period of time, they're going to invest their energy to investigate. They're either investigating or responding, right? Investigating means they are playing with ideas, researching, gathering possible ideas or possible solutions to a problem, or responding. By responding, they've identified a problem and they are profiling a solution to that problem. That sort of captures project-based learning um, um, in its essence, right? In its essence. So if you look at what I have on the slide, I mentioned on that slide that in STEM, PBL connects academic content to real-world scenarios, right? Making learning relevant and motivating, right? Making learning relevant and motivating, right? It's an instructional approach that engages students in meaningful real-world projects, right? And they are working collaboratively to solve complex problems or answer challenging questions, right? All of these things will foster a deeper understanding of the subject matter that they are talking about. One of the things which is a major issue that we've seen across board in our educational system, we have students who can respond to academic problems, right? They can respond to academic problems, but they are not able to translate. They are not able to translate that response or the understanding behind the response that they've given. They're not able to translate it to solve a real world problems. One of the questions that that I would normally ask to sort of brain tease. Sorry. Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Ma. Sorry, I just got a feedback um, from my end here. Just allow me, I think I should be able to hide this. Um, bar. So apologies for that. I got a feedback that the bar was obstructing, not allowing some of us see what's being projected or get the best experience, as the case may be. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, man, for that knowledge. Okay. So one of the questions I would normally ask, right, my student, brain teaser, right, it's really just about a way to find out if students really think deeply, right? If they are thinkers, right? Is a simple question like, why are the wheels for our cars, our bicycles, sort of in our automobile industry, why are they round? The wheels have to be round. I mean, why aren't they squares or why aren't they triangles, right? Those are questions that you can use to quickly ascertain how deeply a student. I mean, if you have students that haven't thought of those questions and, a whole lot of funny other questions, even as adults, sometimes you find out that a whole lot of people haven't really given it a thought, right? There are many things that we just assume that should be the way they are without an understanding behind the scene of why they arrived at that particular solution, right? Why they arrived or how they arrived at that particular solution. So really, that's really where you want to get your students to be, right? Now, this takes us to another very important distinction, right? How does projects differ from project-based learning? Because while I was shuffling around the breakout rooms yesterday, I did hear some comments from some of our educators as to project, how they do projects and all of that. But I wouldn't say I was too convinced that what was being carried out was project-based learning. Right. So I would like to do that. I'd like to do justice to the difference now. So you may be an educator on this meeting, right? And I mean, you do projects before now, particularly in the science field. You're good with projects. You've been doing a lot of projects in your subject, and what have you, right? So the question then becomes: if I am doing projects, does that mean that I am practicing project-based learning? Just bring this down to my screen and then charts, just so I can stay abreast in case there are questions that need my attention. So does that mean that I am doing justice to project-based learning? No. So it's intentional, right? I haven't put them up yet. That's why it's blank, right? So because what I want to get into now is the difference between project-based learning, PBL, and doing projects like many teachers have been doing, right? Which also is a huge thumbs up. At least you've taken a step further than the traditional expectations, right? You've taken a step further than the traditional expectations. So I just want to take a step further to make that difference between them. At first, when you do projects, right? What the nature of what projects really are in your classes would be an extra activity that the students carry out, right? It is usually perhaps at the beginning of a lesson, right? During a lesson or at the end of the lesson. It usually happens in that manner, right? Some teachers or some schools are a bit more creative, and instead of doing it at the beginning, middle, or at the end of a lesson, what they do is they allow the students that autonomy to decide what projects they want to carry out. So either at the beginning of the term or towards the midterm break, they'll be given about 3 options. And those options sometimes are based on the subjects and the topics that they have done for that term, right? So the students are free to pick which project or which subject and topic they want to carry out a project on, right? Some schools that are even far more driving would mandate that in all subjects, the students every term have to turn up some kind of project, right? That idea starts out well, and these are things you can even pitch, right? They start out well, but in experience, you then see that what that then becomes is, at the long run, people or teachers or students then resolve to show and tell as the only product that they produce. Now, I believe we all know what I mean by show and tell. Show and tell simply means, okay, you've picked a subject and a topic, you do like a little presentation, right? Little presentation. Some people may go as far as making a realia, a physical object that they can describe to the entire class. Some do PowerPoint, some put it on a cardboard. It's just a way of showcasing what you've gone home to research or what you've gone home to make, right? And really the style that you use to showcase is really left to the students, right? And if care is not taken, if it's not properly monitored, that's what I've seen, doing projects in that manner, in that fashion, turns out to be on the long run, right? all student now resort to is just to do that show and tell. And then the purpose is, defeated again, right? Now, at the core of whichever approach you are using in your school or using in your class, the elements that you will find is that it is either at the beginning, at the end, or at the middle of either the topic you are teaching or the term at large, right? It's usually an add-on to your instructions, right? And it's really not much more than that, right? It's really not much more than that, right? They are testing out the efficacy of what they've learned, right? It's really not much, nothing more than that. Now, another key element is that it is teacher-based, right? You follow the direction of the teacher, right? Some people have done justice to try to expand this by giving them options what to pick from. But at the end of the day, you are still the one at the background, dictating what and what they should do. A lot of times, some teachers even go the extra mile to give them guides, right? They give them guides. Okay, this is how your project, should be carried out, and what have you. Right, that's another key element of project. You will soon find when I get to the project-based learning counterpart of this, not counterpart now, in contrast to this, you'll find that all of these things are not exactly what project-based learning is, starting from the very first one, right? Being an add-on, right? Another thing that is common with projects that you may have done or you are doing presently is that it is focused on product, right? It is focused on the product, the end point. Make me a 3D model of a skeleton using local materials, right? It is focused on the product. So students are scored based on how neat their work turned out to be, or they are scored on, whether or not the materials that they use to get to that final product were complete. I mean, because in the previous step that I mentioned, one of the elements is that it is teacher directed. So in the case where the teacher has mentioned what and what you have to use, right? This child will be getting a score on whether or not he was able to use that material in the final product. It is focused on the product, right? A child whose product is not, doesn't look nice, right, gets less grade as opposed to a child whose product looks, better presented. Another key element of projects now, as I'm going through all of this, I want you to begin to, self-reflect, right? What have you been doing before now? What have you been practicing? Do you see elements of what you've been practicing in all of the things that I'm mentioning, right? If you see that element and you can relate to it, then what you are doing at best is just a project, right? Not project-based learning, right? It is often unrelated to standards and skills, right? It is often unrelated to standards and skills, right? I can see a few comments in the chat section. Someone has asked, I thought PBL is done in collaboration, right? Yes, it is done in collaboration. I would also still share more light on that just before the time runs out for today, right? Most of those projects are done by parents. Yes, most of the projects sometimes are done by parents. So you tend to score a child who takes on this project alone, or who takes on that project alone, and maybe his work is not as refined as a child who has gotten help from parents. You tend to score the first child in the first instance lower, right? Those are some of the pitfalls of doing projects. They are often unrelated to the standards and skills, right? A lot of times teachers don't emphasize for the students how that the project that they are doing relates to what they have learned in class, right? It is just their job to do the project. And sometimes some projects may even be outside of what they have learned in class, right? Another thing about project would be that um, it can be completed alone, right? A single student can complete it alone without the help of any other person. You can complete it again at home, or you can complete it with the help of both, just like we've pointed out, right? Either it's this child and the parent, doing it together, right? Um, and how can we do this in subjects like math, right? So for example, in math, you may have carried out a few projects, for example, in measurement, right? Uh, you may have carried out a few projects in measurement, or you may have carried out a few projects in when you are doing shapes, particularly when you get to 3D shapes, right? Irrespective of the class that you are teaching, right? Whether it's in the elementary or the secondary school. I've seen um, uh, math teachers who have also given projects when it comes to um, fractions, right? Fractions, money, when you are doing money or you are doing division, basic arithmetics, right? All of those projects can come, into play. Now, there are more complex mathematical concepts, right? Mathematical concepts that the students have not seen too many math teachers do justice to, I must say, right? Um, and I'm even thankful that thank God we have math teachers around today. So I think I'll also mention them in passing when I do get there. Um, so again, back to the earlier thought is that uh, students can complete it whether in school, at home alone, or at home with the help of parents. Now that product that they eventually come up with, what you will find out is that the best that happens to that product is that they put it in the class, right? For teachers who have taken a step further, right, they will hang it in the class, display it in some way, shape, or form within the class. Some teachers will keep it for the entire term, and then once it's the start of the new term, they dispose it. Some schools that have large spaces, they find like a room, a collection room where they put all of these projects that students turn in, and then maybe year in year out, when that room is congested, they discard some of the older ones, right? Some schools would, depending on how nice or how beautiful the project turns out to be, it may display it, put it on the display board, right? Um, but all of these things still point to the element of project. Now, they are wonderful, right? This is not talking down on the effort that you have put in so far. They are wonderful, right? Not even all teachers go this extra mile. Some teachers don't even bother, right? So if you are doing this already, thumbs up, kudos, right? But it can be better. So here is how you want to change your mindset, right? Here is the shift you want to make, right? To all of these things that may relate to how you've been practicing um, your lesson delivery in terms of the projects that you carry out. Now, project-based learning is not at the end, middle, or beginning, as the case may be. The project itself is what the students are learning. And you remember that this project I'm referring to are authentic problems. These projects that I'm referring to are authentic questions or challenges that the students are facing, whether it's an individual or personal problem, question, challenges, or a global thing, the community that they find themselves. That is the unit itself. That is what they are learning. Right? So your lesson objectives are integrated to are integrated inside of that challenge, inside of that question, inside of that problem. They are integrated inside of it to help them solve the problem. Right? A wonderful example that I mentioned yesterday, I think let me take us back to it just quickly. When we're talking about STEM, right, I had mentioned a particular example when we're talking about STEM, seeing when we're talking about the interdisciplinary approach, how that all of these subjects connect to each other. I gave an example when I said that, for example, in science, whether physics or something, basic science, maybe you are teaching them motion, right? You're studying motion or forces and all of that, right? That's what you are doing in science. But inside of there is the mathematical aspect that ties closely to that knowledge of motion, right? The mathematical aspect where you get to where you're calculating speed or distance and and how speed relates to time and distance and all of those things, right? That's the math. The student need to know those formulas. They need to master those formulas, right? And in there is also the technology aspect of it. Now, the technology aspect of it would then be how can they use maybe a software to simulate the motion of an object, right? Either under the influence, due to the influence of gravity, or either motion in a straight line or circular motion. They can use some kind of software, right? There are 3D simulation softwares out there, 3D online simulation softwares out there that can help students see all of these things, picture them, experiment with them, tweak them, and see the effect of one on the other. That's technology, right? The engineering aspect of that would be, okay, now that we've looked at all of these things, can we apply everything we've learned to design a bridge, right? So if you are going to design a bridge, you are going to apply all of those knowledge of motion and all of all of that. And you can work your way back. Now, I said that because while we were talking about it, there was a particular example that I shared, right? Take, for example, designing energy efficient homes, right? That's a pressing need for the world presently, right? And we have lots of developed countries transitioning away from fossil fuels to exploring other options. Some countries are exploring, they are betting heavy on solar energy solutions. I saw on YouTube at some point how that a teacher um, carried out an experiment where he converted it was a project on conversion of energy. So he was converting kinetic energy to electrical energy. So it was converting both kinetic and potential energy into electrical energy. And he did that by simply using levers, magnets on a tree in front of his house, right? He had connected several levers into like a unit that had magnets and all of these things inside, so that when the wind blows and the tree is shaking, it pulls or releases those magnets, right? And the movement of those magnets up and down, magnets and coils, if you understand a bit about electromagnetism, right? Electricity produces a magnetic field. Likewise, a magnetic field produces electricity. And it was able to make that conversion. So it turned simple tree moving, right? It converted that energy back to electrical energy to charge his phone. Imagine a solution in that line that is employed on a large scale, right? Employed on a large scale, no cutting down of trees. I mean, habitats, the animals, birds that will live on that tree is not taken away completely. They can still build their nest and they are living fine, cohabiting fine, right? The tree is growing and all of that, right? So I mentioned that to also point to the fact that many countries are already considering multiple options. The most common out there is, solar um, power. I mean, some countries have done justice to using wind turbines to generate electricity and all of that. But still, at its best, it doesn't still help us, effectively solve the problem of energy efficiency in our homes, right? It doesn't really help us effectively solve that problem of energy efficiency in our homes, right? That was one of the examples that I gave. So imagine that is a project that you are carrying out. That is the problem, or that is the idea you want to attempt to provide a solution to, or a question you want to answer. It means that everything that you are doing that in that term, or just a particular topic, a particular list of topic that you are doing in that term, either 2 topics or 3 topics, would be directed to answer that question about designing energy efficient homes for our local communities. If you follow SDG channels, I remember that one of the showcases that they did at some point for underdeveloped communities deep inside of Africa was someone found a way to sort of, again, convert kinetic energy into electrical energy. So the lady had made a ball, right? And inside of that ball, there were little mechanisms here and there. So each time children, play that ball during the day and kick it, and that tussle, that motion, random motion, hitting, I think the mechanism inside of it moving rapidly, randomly hitting, all sides of the ball, like it's charging. And so at the end of the day, in the night, they can take that ball and sort of push a button inside of it, and then the ball lights up to provide light for them to read. It becomes like a light bulb, right? I saw that invention and I thought that was amazing, right? Now, don't allow all of these examples that I'm giving, don't allow them to scare you, right? Because they are achievable, right? They are achievable, very well achievable. So that's a major difference between project-based learning and doing projects. Right? In project, it's an add-on. For project-based learning, the project that you want to do is not, you are not adding it at the end of the term or at the beginning of the term or at the beginning of the topic or at the end of the topic, right? It is the topic you are teaching, right, that you are adding to solve that problem. So it starts with a big idea in the class, right? It starts with a big idea. Now, how do we solve this problem? How do we contribute, right? And then in the means of you contributing to that problem, either by providing a solution, you then begin to teach the topic. So the lesson target, lesson objectives are supposed to be able to get the student to that point where they are able to solve that problem or provide some kind of solutions. I have missed my taskbar again, my chat bar again. Please allow me quickly grab it and return it. Someone's annotation showing on our end. Okay, let's just disable this annotation for others. Let's hide this straight. All right, so Okay, so the person who has the attendance, Mr. Idris, I believe, you can please just stay put to the end of the meeting so you can reach out, so you can speak to the administrator and let's see what can be worked out for you. Yes, amazing invention. I'll do well to share all of these links. I think I'll try to find them and share them tomorrow. They are very inspiring, right? They're very inspiring, I must say. All right, so now it is, as opposed to being driven by the teacher, where the teacher stipulates all of the responses, how to carry out the project, the endpoint, and all of that. No, no, no. Project-based learning is student-driven, right? It is student-driven, and the student power it by inquiry, right? The student power it by inquiry. Now, what I mean by that is at the beginning of the term, right? At the beginning of the term, there are really a number of ways that you can go about it, right? And this is what I practice, right? At the beginning of the term, either before the term begins or at the beginning of the term, however you are choosing to meet them. And that's why having ICT skills is is very important for teachers. I mean, you can meet with your student even before the term begins, right? You can, flip your classroom. You can host virtual brainstorming sessions with your students. I mean, if it's in the rural community where they don't have access to maybe phones and all of that, you can call for a meeting where they gather. It doesn't have to be the traditional morning. They can gather afternoon, depending on their proximity to the school and all of that. You can even make it an evening. What's the name? Who's to say that you cannot even have a picnic with your students? You don't have to be the one providing all of the meals. They can come with their meals. So the lunch they are supposed to have, let them come and have it in school, right? Foster that collaboration between them, right? Even if it's Gary that they are going to drink, let them come to school and drink it. Let everyone sit down and have that conversation. So what I will normally do is to share with them, to isolate, to share with them like a summary of all of the topics we are going to be looking at, right? So after sharing all of the topics we are going to be looking at, and this is very achievable again for the older ones, right? For the younger ones in the elementary school, it may be a bit tedious for them to be able to wrap their heads around the questions or problems that they can solve with, that they can solve in the light of all of the topics that you've shared. But the older ones, with a little bit of, they may not get it at first, the first week or the first time you are introducing it to them, but as time goes on, as they get used to it, they will be able to think far and broad. And when they see that topic highlights, right, they can either choose as a class to agree and say, okay, out of all of these topics, I think that there's a problem in the world presently, or in my community, or at home presently, that if I get knowledge about what I am doing in this particular topic, I should be able to solve that problem, right? There may come some terms where, or sessions where you may see relations between 2 or 3 more topics that you are teaching in that subject, right? It can be 2 topics, it can be 3 topics, as the case may be, right? And I can expand that particular approach to then include other teachers, right? You can include other teachers, right? Because STEM in itself, likewise project-based learning, sort of is intertwined, right? You may also find that for that particular problem that they've spotted a topic that they can use to solve a particular problem in their community, you may find that the knowledge from another subject in a topic that they are also doing in that subject may be useful, right? And so I'm going to rewind now, right? I'm going to rewind now, right? And I will advise that this is, again, another opportunity for teachers to collaborate, right? You must learn how to walk up to just about any other teacher in that school, in the staff room, meet with them, call them, chat them up, and find out, what are you teaching these kids this term? right? Can we isolate a topic or two from what you are teaching them this term? And for me, I can pick out a topic or two from what I'm teaching them this term. These topics can be very instrumental in helping the students attempt to solve this problem. I hope that as I'm explaining it, I'm shedding more light and I'm answering some of the questions in our minds, in our hearts. You can begin to leave the questions in the comment section, and I'll begin to also address them as I'm sharing all of this, right? So in a term, you then have, for example, you then have two teachers. One of the teacher has isolated one topic from what you'll be teaching them in the entire term out of maybe 10, 11, 12 topics, right? You have isolated two topics. Both of you, right, can introduce. Now, I mentioned that it is driven by students, right? The student choice is very critical, right, for the success of any project-based learning. The student choice is very critical. But what I find is that as teachers, there are ways that you can guide this student's choice so that the day you are showing them all of the topics, teaching it to them and explaining what the goal of each topic would be, what they'll be learning, and they are unable to come up with a solution, you can immediately pull out an idea, pull the rabbit out of the hat, right? And pitch it to them and say, okay, how about this? Have them consider your presentation. Have them consider the suggestion you are giving to them. And you'll be amazed. I have found that it has worked. In my situation, in the many situations I've done this, right? How can we use the method of PBL to make like this system in mathematics? I'm going to give that a thought, and I'll offer you a few suggestions. I'm going to give that a thought. So what you can do for me now is let me know, can you give me sort of like a brief description of number base that you are referring to, the class level, and also sort of what you aim to, to teach, what you aim to drive, in them with that particular topic that you mentioned. Another question is, can you apply PBL to every topic to be taught? Actually, you can apply PBL to every topic, right? But I would advise that you consider the topics carefully, right? I'm going to show you an example of a PBL planner, right, where all of the topics I was teaching in that term were intertwined for that one alongside other teachers. But for me, the subject I was teaching was in ICT, right? All of the topics that I found myself teaching in that term where the goal was intertwined and they fit perfectly into the PBL big idea that they were working with, right? So just consider them carefully, right? You may find that in a term, there may be 3, 4, 5, 6 topics that line perfectly with the PBL idea that you may be thinking, or the students may be thinking around, right? I mean, but if it's as little as, even if it's 2 or 1 topic, you are also fine, right? It doesn't mean that it has to be 1 topic, and it doesn't mean that it always has to be all topics, right? Another thing about project-based learning, again, you must have heard me making allusions saliently to it, is that it is focused on the product and process, not just the product. The process of getting to that product is also very important, because depending on the extended time that you have chosen, whether it's a week or 6 weeks or the 6 weeks or the entire term, there are regular check-ins that you do, right, to find out, okay, what have we achieved in this week towards the product, towards the project we are working on, towards the product that we are building, towards the solution we are trying to come up with? What have we achieved? Are there things we need to tweak? Are there things we need to stop doing? Are there things we need to start doing? Right? It is focused as much on the process as it is with the product itself. Right? The process is a very key aspect of project-based learning. Now, again, the process again also includes, so in that analogy I was giving, one of the teachers has spotted out two topics, another teacher has spotted out one topic, and so they are working together. Thankfully, when they pitched it to their students, the students sort of were able to work with came up with a particular problem that fit perfectly with the two topics and the one topic that the teachers came up with to teach to them so that they can solve the problem that they identified. Now, it may so happen that for the first teacher, one of the topics that you'll be teaching may be in week 2. Now, for the teacher that has 2 topics. And the second topic may be in week 8, according to your scheme, right? In some cases, I mean, if you can swap, bring that knowledge back so that there is a build-up of knowledge from the teacher that has one topic that is teaching them that topic in week 1, right, where they need the first knowledge, right, the basic prerequisite, and then they move to the second teacher that has 2 topics, and then in week 2, they add to the knowledge that they've gotten from the teacher in week 1, and then, I mean, if situation allows, and you can bring that second topic to week 3, so that depending on how you plan to deliver the project, there is no harm in waiting up until week 8, right? I would even say that waiting up until week 8 to teach them that third topic, right, can even give you a lot more time for them to come up with several solutions pending the time you teach them the final topic. Right? They can do a lot of activities, surveys, they can gather a lot of information. I mean, if it's a product that requires them building something physically, that's plenty enough time for them to gather materials that they can use, right? Okay, so like programming number base converter with Python and or Excel. Interesting. For physical computing, students can build a simple circuit where different numbers of light on and off represent different binary values. Interesting. I love that line of thought. Okay, so I think that from what you've shared, you can definitely use PBL, right? Here's a few suggestions. That I can offer to you. One more thing I also need. When you say physical computing, now you can teach physical computing in the primary level or at the secondary level. So can you please specify, right? I know that physical computing from the English curriculum, sorry, I look at curriculums a lot, right? It's taught in year 4, 5, year 5 and 6, I think. Year 5 and 6, physical computing is being introduced to them at those levels. And also, of course, in the secondary level, they explore that concept again, but in higher details. So can you just let me know what level so I know how far to go off the top of my head? It doesn't mean that the suggestions I will come up with are the only solutions. All right, so it is in year 5/6 and college. All right, great. Year 5 and 6 and college. All right, so for year 5 and 6, if you are doing something in the line of number-based conversion, physical computing, building simple circuits. Now, what you can consider as a project PBL idea is something that comes to mind presently is, I don't know if you've heard, if you know what Morse codes are, right? Morse codes. For the benefit of everyone here, I'll just share a bit. So Morse codes are sort of like secret codes. They were used during the World War period, you may have seen something close to them. They are like both light and sound signals, right? Both light and sound signals that you can use to transmit information, right? So a particular sound, the length of that sound also, not just the sound in itself, the length of the sound or a particular flash, the flash of an LED, and how long the LED stays on, right, can be translated to mean a particular letter in the alphabet, right? And there were people who trained in this, right, who were masters of Morse codes, and they helped to, communicate secret information between countries, between allied nations, and what have you. So you can bring that back. I mean, you can take a look at it, right? You can take a look at it. No, Morse codes. I think it is spelled Morse, not Moscow. Please, pardon me. You can search, and I'm very sure that if you even look online, you may see people, schools, one or two projects on YouTube. I believe you should be able to find, people that have done things around that Moscow, and you can build them with simple circuits, as the case may be. I mean, if you have physical computing toolkits, for example, Arduinos, microbits, or circuit boards, really, just about that. That can even help the experience for the student become even more great. Yes, please. Right. And so what I'm thinking in my mind is, can the student come up with their own language, right? Or their own means of communicating, right? Now, they are not doing this, of course, they are doing this for the fun of it, but beyond that, what you are trying to drive into them is, one of the products that you can be showcasing, aside from the finished circuit and how it works, it could be, a presentation, right? It could be a presentation on, if you are doing history, hopefully your teachers in history are doing something this term that they can also use in that line. So if your teacher in this term is doing something around history, right, you can have them bring up, so instead of giving them those homework, those assignments, random assignments, or your teacher in literacy, right, those random assignments, perhaps comprehension or things like that, you can come up with simple comprehension passages on Morse codes, right? That should be the assignment that they are going home with in literacy or English, whichever you call them on your end, right? If it's history, let them have assignments around that. Let them find out, read about the world wars, right? Maybe World War I, do like a summary. Let them get information. They don't have to go through the entire story, but there are sites, videos that they will watch that are kid-friendly, that can help them summarize what happened during the World War I, World War II, right? And they can pick, ideas from all of this. Yeah, someone has mentioned Snap Circuit. It's a wonderful tool. I've used Snap Circuit also before. You can use that also to teach that. So now I've touched a whole lot on the circuit part of it. Now, how do you bring your base 10 conversion and all of that? Off the top of my head, I'm thinking that if you have as little as a microbit, you can use Scratch. Scratch doesn't integrate with Arduinos, right? But a simple Scratch program can, they can write a simple Scratch program that can help them convert, right? That can help them convert to base 10 or base 2, as the case may be, right? It's a simple calculation, right? In the secondary level, particularly SS1, they should be able to write a code to convert from one base to another, right? They can do that. They should be able to do that, right? It's a simple project. I mean, if your ICT teacher, if you are not the ICT teacher, okay, for example, you said you are the math teacher, the ICT teacher may have experience that can be very helpful. Right? You can use Scratch. Scratch works with microbit, doesn't work with Arduino. But again, if Arduino is what you can get, of course, you can write codes on the Arduino IDE to also make all of this. There are other visual block-based programming languages that offer you an integration with Arduino, right? There are Scratch mods, right? Modified versions of Scratch that can do more things. And those are really just about areas that you can explore. So I've mentioned how you can integrate even history into that, how you can integrate literacy into that. I mean, you can also look through, there may even be other subjects, right? So instead of lighting LEDs using simple circuit, so and all of that, you can integrate other subjects into it, depending on how far reaching you are willing to take that knowledge. That's just off the top of my head. I mean, if we had to talk maybe after now, we sit down and brainstorm, I'm very sure that we can flesh out even more pressing issues, right, that you can come up with, right? That's just off the top of my head, right? So it is focused again on the product and process, not just the product. I want to cover all of these differences. It is aligned with academic standards and success skills, right? It is aligned with academic standards and success skills. You are not doing it separately because it is your lesson target, your lesson objectives that you are using to teach them how to solve that problem. So it is aligned with your standards and success skills, unlike just doing projects that may not be aligned, right? It involves collaboration with students and in-class guidance from teachers. I've stressed this, right? Students need to collaborate, right? They are collaborating for the product that they are working on, the solution they are working on, the challenge they are trying to solve. Likewise, there has to be that teacher guidance. Teacher guidance, even from the start, trying to help them shape or guide them into what the problem or the challenge that they can be considering to solve may be, right? And you already see that in some of the things I've mentioned, right? It is very obvious that there is no doing all of this without getting them to that point where they are thinking critically. All of the skills that we mentioned, right? We talked about critical thinking. We talked about collaboration and communication, right? We talked about creativity and innovation. We talked about hands-on learning, right? Some of the skills that we mentioned, right? That STEM, teaches, right? You can see all of them. They are intertwined again. That's why I tell anyone, right? If you want to do STEM using the project-based learning methodology. It will do justice to any STEM work that you are working on. Again, lastly, it has a real-world context and application. It has a real-world context and application. That's the best. That's the best that you want to do. Don't just give them absurd or vague projects to carry out, right? Let their project-based learning works on projects that have real-world context and application, right? Now, all of the projects that you are used to before now, whether you are teaching them about centrifugal force or whether you are teaching them about one of the beautiful ideas was crop rotations in one of the other online classes that we had, right? Crop rotation, right? It doesn't mean that what you've been doing before now is rubbish. It's just that somehow teachers have not found a way to help the students see the connection, right? So the students that are doing that project, they have a farm, they are practicing crop rotation or and all of those things, but they don't see the connection with the larger world. How that that crop rotation, they can use it to solve a problem that Nigeria is facing or that their immediate community is facing at the moment, right? With project-based learning, if you transition if you shift your mindset to project-based learning, you can do all of that stress-free. All right, so someone has given you a suggestion. Mind Plus can actually be used to program Arduino with Scratch. Okay, so you mentioned that I mean in mathematics and not computers. I mean in mathematics and not computers. Conversion of numbers in order basis to 10. Okay, SS1. All right, so even in the okay, so I must have been confusing two different inputs from two people, right? I thought you were also the person that posted the one with the physical computing, right? Apologies. Right. So even in what I've mentioned, I mean, it just popped into my mind, right? So you want to teach them conversion of numbers in order basis to base 10. So you want to ask yourself, now I believe this is one of the topics you are teaching them, not the only topic you are teaching them. So you want to ask yourself, right, an honest question, right? The knowledge of converting numbers from order basis to base 10, um, what use is there of that knowledge in today's world, right? That's where it's going to start from, right? Why is that knowledge important? Is there something, is there a process, is there a product in today's world that is reliant on those conversions, right? If you come up with that solution, then the project that you want to solve or the problem that you want to solve is already in front of you, right? So maybe if you can give me that feedback also, I would do well to keep an eye out on in the chat section. If you do give me that feedback, I would be able to suggest a way, another way forward from that. But that's where it will start from, right? So, and you remember I said that when I show them all of the topics, I give them a rundown of what the knowledge of this topic can, what you can use it for. Why is this topic important? But this is our scheme of work. Why are we going to be learning number base and conversion? What is the use? Right? So it is in the use of all of these things that you can then even immediately spot out the problems that you can possibly solve, that you can aim to solve. Right? And really, I mean, if you take that simple topic that you mentioned and you push it into Google or AI, ChatGPT, or even your WhatsApp Meta AI, right, and ask them what is the use or what problems are we currently using conversion of base order base to base 10? What are we using it to solve in today's world? You can localize it in Lagos, in Nigeria. What does that knowledge help me to solve? And you already have a problem that you can immediately begin to build around. So that even though you present all of these things to your students and they are unable to come up with a solution with a problem that they want to zero in on, you can immediately pull this out of the hat and say, okay, how about this problem? I think that the knowledge of when we learn about conversion, different base to base 10 or base 10 to other bases, I think that we can use it to solve this particular problem in this sector. So can we attempt this? And I know that Mr. A or Mrs. B is going to be teaching you something in this line also. So the knowledge that you'll be getting from this topic and these other topics will be useful. You can apply it to solve this problem. You can solve the problem in any way, shape that you form that you want. You can decide to want to make a physical product. It can be a presentation, right? And so on and so forth. So if you can please provide me more context, I'll definitely keep an eye out. Results of projects are shared beyond the classroom with a public audience. That's the result of, at the end of every project-based learning, you will soon see that there are key elements of project-based learning, right? They are gold standards. You cannot take out this part, that your product, the result, has to be shared with a public audience. That public audience can be the children in the next class, either in the senior class or in the lower classes. The public audience can be a call for all parents to pitch your idea or pitch your solution. right? The public audience can be the society, community, right? Pardon me. I think the slide is out. Just allow me quickly bring that back, right? So this problem can showcase in this many ways, right? They can showcase them, pardon me, this public product can be done in, all of these many ways that I have mentioned. Just allow me a few seconds. I'm going to put up that presentation again. Apologies. Okay. So let me just charts. Okay, great. All right. So the problem on well done, sir. What problem on matrix on math for exam class SS3? I mean, if you give me a bit more time, I can do a little bit of brainstorming around this matrix. I mean, what is coming to my mind now is it will be very tasking, very demanding, right? I'm thinking students be able to pull it off. Presentation, complex shapes, matrix, interesting. Okay, just give me a bit of time. I'll think around it. So binary numbers originated from transistors, which are electronic switches that has base, collector, and emitter. You can use a mechanical switch as an example, which require an external force to move from on state to the off state, which satisfies the Newton's first law of motion. Every object will continue to be in a state of rest or for motion is accepted by external net external force. The reason why we learn binary numbers are because inside the memories of the computer, there are billions of transistors, right? That does transistors that does on and off operations. One means a switch is on and zero means the switch is off. Okay, thank you. Someone just did justice, right? To I believe this would now be the need or the reason behind conversion, right? There are millions of transistors inside the memory of a computer. There are billions of transistors, and they perform one of two operations, on and off, right? As much as I love this wonderful points that you've made, I'm still trying to look for something even deeper, right? I know that you've connected this to computers, right? But I'm thinking now in a rural environment, right, where they don't even have access to computers, would this really, would it do justice? I mean, this is just me thinking, right? This is me thinking, right? In your situation and in your context, this may mean a whole lot. It can be well-meaning for the student. And if this is well-meaning for the student and they understand it, right, by all means, go for this, right? But if you find that in your own situation, this may be a little bit a bit abstract for them, right? You can still search even, a bit further, right? You may even find that, okay, after searching far and near, right, it may be difficult to come up with a problem that they can solve because of their level, right? Either level of exposure or academic level that they are in presently. So at that point, you now want to consider other topics. It is not compulsory that it has to be in that topic, right? You can also explore the same concept, the same approach to other topics and see that, okay, in these particular topics and the lesson objectives that I have, are they able or would they be able to solve a particular problem? Now, I want us to watch this video.
Testing the conductivity level.
I'm just going to pause, and also I'm going to maybe restart this video, but I want to find out if the audio is being received on your end. I want to know if the audio is being received on your end. So can we just give me that feedback if you can hear the audio from your end?
Hello. My name is Anna. During the Excel School's summer coding and robotics program, we learned how to make a simple device similar to the commercial EC sensor. Now, an EC sensor means electrical conductivity sensor. We did this as part of the environmental survey. We broke into groups and collected water from different areas. For example, this water sample from Obudu. And we tested them if it would be good or safe enough for drinking in different areas.
Okay, so I'm receiving that feedback now. Okay, what I would do is I'll try immediately to play that again. I believe perhaps the echo that is being heard may be from here. So I'm just going to mute again. I'm going to mute now.
Testing the conductivity level in all sorts of liquids.
Perhaps I'm just going to adjust something here now. And then I'm going to try this again. So let me know if it's still the same. Okay, so if you cannot hear the audio, I think just like someone suggested, I'm going to share this video after now, and then we can download it, right? We can download it As a matter of fact, I think I should be able to do that now, right? But because of time, I would advise that we don't, you know, click or use the link yet, so that because the class would continue, right? And you don't want to miss out. But after now, you can of course go back to it and watch. So I'm just going to copy the link and put it in the chats section now. Um, um, sorry, let me just do that again. Copy. Apologies for the delay. Okay. So that video is in that drive. I mean, if you click and open that link or that you see there, it should take you to the video and then you can watch it. Let me give you a quick summary of what's happening on that video that you saw, right? Now, that was a project-based learning block where the students were experimenting with um, figuring out the quality of water, right? The quality of water available for drinking, or requesting for access. Just okay. Just allow me get to that. I'll get to that and then open up that access link. Thank you, Ms. Khadija Kolake. Thank you for that. So if you do try to open the link and it's requesting for access, just be patient. Once we are done, I'm going to grant all access so that anytime you click the link, it won't ask you for that access. So you can just copy the link and maybe paste on your notepad or text message on WhatsApp, just somewhere you can save it up until we wrap up today's class. So in that video, what was going on was that the student decided to test the quality of water across several areas in Lagos. So they had gone out to collect several water samples, right? And they decided to test using an electrical conductivity sensor, right? It's usually called an EC sensor, right? We didn't really have the option to buy one, right? So we just made one, right? The concept of how EC sensors work are not exactly too complicated for us to have wrapped our heads around. So we just built ours, right? And then we use simple materials to build them, straws, glues, conductive materials. We had processor boards available at our disposals. We also used it and all of that. And so that gives us a brief idea of what project-based learning can be like. Now, the end product of that video got us even beyond the core concept that we were teaching, the target that we were teaching in that class. It got us to the point where we now decided to start experimenting. So questions started coming up about fizzy drinks, whether Coke or Fanta and all of these things. Are they even good for us to drink? Beyond the popular saying, beyond the general consensus of what I have heard, the student decided to test them out. So our students suggesting that can we add, can we test Fanta? Can we test Sprite? Can we test Coke? Right? And then they did all of those tests and the results were amazing. And then from those tests, they were now able to, profile solutions to, okay, should we then advocate for students our age kids to drink more fizzy drink or to abstain from fizzy drinks and things like that. Right now, in the final showcase that they did, interestingly, I had someone on my contact list, right? This was about several months after that, I think a month or two after that, who reached out to me, right? Telling me that, oh, that I had carried out a particular project with my students some months ago. That can she look through that video again and can I give her a brief on what the student did? Well, now, why was she asking? Apparently, she had someone who was the special advisor to the governor, right? Who was also thinking around, projects in that line, right? And then she said she remembered that she saw a video and she saw kids and children doing something in that light. So she wanted to, engage me to see, okay, what these kids have done. Does it align with what they were looking for? And so that they can even maybe invite some of the students or invite a student, give them a platform or give them an opportunity, right? The essence was solving a problem, right? For me, I was happy with that PBL because we had achieved a lot. I mean, if someone high up there can look at what they are doing and be able to tell categorically that this, as little as it may seem, is solving a problem that we are facing in the world presently, that's a huge thumbs up. It builds even the students' confidence in what it is that they are learning.
Testing.
Right? We're not going to take this poll, but like I said, at the end, we are almost at the end of the today's lecture. We're going to take an exercise, right? So please, let's get ready for that. So finally, we want to look at the gold standards of PBL. Now, I titled this the gold standards of PBL because these are really some of the key features that every PBL block of learning should have. Right? You want to carry out PBL, make sure that all of these 7 elements or 8 elements, some people tell you it's 7, some people tell you it's 8, some people tell you it's 6, right? Whatever number you choose, right? But you will definitely find that there are consensus as to, some those that have 8 have just splitted some of the elements into 2 to be more detailed, right? But they are not different, right? One and the same, right? They are the elements that you must make sure that is evident in every PBL learning that you carry out, right? And it's not too late. We're approaching the half term. I mean, you can look at either the topics that you've taught, you can bring them back, right? Or the topics that you are going to teach after the half term, right? And begin to prep them for this, right? You can bring those topics that you taught back in the sense that you may have taught them in isolation. Now you want to bring that knowledge back and maybe in collaboration with other teachers and other topics slash other subjects, you want to then begin to help them understand and see that this lesson targets in this particular topic. Let's begin to use it. Let's apply it to solve this particular need for the school. Let's begin to apply to solve this particular need for yourself in your personal life, your family, home, community, and so on and so forth, right? I shared the story of a student who, because of how much she had practiced project-based learning, she took it upon herself. She had noticed, because one of the things that project-based learning helps, your students with is that they become not just problem solvers, ability to solve problems or to think critically, they can identify problems, right? She was able to identify how that in our estate, the street lights were not working, right? And she single-handedly wrote a letter to the estate management, right? So when they had that estate meeting, the dad submitted the letter, and then the estate chairman looked at it and then invited her. Now, when she did this, she was in year 7, I think, right? I think it was year 7, what you call GSS1, right? Invited her to come and pitch this problem that she had identified and her solution to solving the problem, right? And now, how did we get to know? Now, we shouldn't have even, gotten to know about all of this. Now, the point where the teachers in the school got to know that she had even started doing things like that in the home front was when she needed to face off with the estates people, right? So she needed help with her presentation and all of that, and things like that. So she needed help to help her, streamline her presentation. And so that's when the teachers then spotted, oh, and then raised it, and then we became, aware. Right? That's what project-based learning aims at doing. And that's just one of the many examples that I can begin to give. Right? If this world, Nigeria, is going to change in the little years of experience that I have, maybe not so little, right? But I can say that I've seen, right? Also considering the fact that I did inquiry-based learning, IBL, for a while, and I transitioned, so I can beat my chest to say that PBL is what every student, every teacher should be teaching, every student should be learning, every teacher should be teaching. That method of learning is what you should be doing, right? Now, every PBL block should have a challenging question, right? A challenging question or a problem, right? With the ones you've done so far, you can still find a problem or a question that you want them to use that knowledge to answer, and they can begin to work on their project, right? With the ones that you are yet to teach them, you want to maybe push it for the next half of the term, you can still, but there has to be that problem or challenge for the students, right? It must be framed meaningfully, right? It shouldn't just be abstract, right? It shouldn't just be vague, right? And it must be appropriate for their level. It should be appropriate for their level. Again, I can still see some people requesting access. Don't worry. The moment we're done with this, I just don't want to take time to start to go to the drive and then change the access method from the share button there, right? But once we are done, as we are ending the meeting, I'll just go right there and change that what's the name, and then you can try that link again and watch the video. There's another video that I'll also share, so there'll be two videos, right? There'll be two videos, and then you can watch both of these videos. So you must have a challenging question or problem. Then there must be sustained inquiry, right? There must be sustained inquiry, right? Students engage in rigorous, extended rigor. They have to be rigorous, and being, extending it, with, questions, right? Is intentional, because that extended period allows them to, reconsider questions, think deeply about questions or solutions, answers that, they may have. They can apply knowledge of the answers that they have to whatever level that they are in. That can now steer them to the next step that, they want to take. There must be that sustained inquiry. What I've found is that at every point in time, if you carry out PBL well, there should always be a question that comes up at every point in time. I mean, questions that you would think you already have answers to, you'll be amazed when you subject them to PBL and subject them to, I mean, there was a block where we had expected the outcome of the answers. They carried out a survey and we had expected the outcome to be in a particular line. And as many people that answered it, I think they had about 77, I think 74 people who took that survey. It was just a Google Forms survey that they shared with their friends, parents, and they got their parents to also share it on their status. Like, it was the pride of every parent to say, okay, my child is carrying out this survey. I mean, this is a child in year 8 or year 4 or year 3, or that's grade primary 4, primary 3, primary 6, SS1, right? They are putting on their status saying, I mean, these are things you will only find university level students doing. It just take a minute or two to help us answer this survey. Right? There were about 10 questions. It can be less. It doesn't have to be 10 questions. It can be 3 questions, 5 questions, depending on what information you are trying to grab. And then we thought the answer was going to go in a particular way. and then the answer turned out to go in another dimension, in another way, totally from what the students expected and what even me as a teacher expected, right? And then they started to think further from that step that, okay, so why this disparity, right? So sustained inquiry. We didn't plan for that, but that inquiry came up because of the project-based learning that we decided to take on. One of the things that taught them is that experimentation is very important. Don't just assume, right? Don't just assume, right? It has to be authentic, right? It has to be authentic. It has to be a real world problem, right? Problem that they can relate with, right? It has to speak to the concerns or the interest of the students, issues in the student's life or issues in the community, as the case may be, right? That's what we mean by being authentic, right? And you find out that because of the word authentic, you can teach the same topic to two different classes, right? Maybe this particular level, they've graduated, they've moved to the next class. You may have that same topic to teach to the next set of people. But because PBL deals with authentic problem, the problem that these people were facing, that these people tried to address a year ago may no longer still be the problem at hand presently, right? So they are facing the problem at hand presently, right? That's also another plus for PBL when we say it has to be authentic. Let's look at the next one is the student choice and the student's voice. The student's choice and the student's voice. The student's choice and the student's voice. Remember that I said it should be student driven, right? I'd always allow them that opportunity to think about problems themselves. Let them think about problems themselves. Remember that problem solving as much as well as identifying problem is also a vital skill that they must learn, right? Particularly in the business world. It's just sad that in our generation, we were not taught this way, right? Your ability to identify problems is going to tell how successful you are. So they should be able to identify problems and take the extra, what's the name, to attempt to solve the problems, right? Very important, right? So then make decision about their projects, including how to work and what they want to create and how they want to express that idea, right? Don't stifle them with what you came up with. That backup plan, that guide, don't let it be the only dominating factor or directing factor in the class. Allow flexibility. Let the student be able to tweak it, change it, adjust it, right? As a matter of fact, if you split them into groups, different groups can come up with different ideas on how they want to provide a solution to that challenge or that problem. And then the fifth is reflection, right? The fifth is reflection, right? Students and teachers reflect on the learning, right? How effective it is. And they do this from time to time, right? The effectiveness of the inquiry, the project activities, the quality of the students' works, the obstacles that they face and how they overcame all of those obstacles. Obstacles can include things like fundraising. How do you raise funds? Obstacles can even be as little as collaborating within the groups that you may have. For those that plan to split them into 2 groups or 3 groups or 5 groups, right? Collaboration may be an obstacle. How are they able to, you already begin to see that you're already teaching them all of those life skills. I mean, there are 5 groups, a particular group, people are not collaborating very well, right? That's a problem that they also need to solve. That's the way life works. You won't always find yourself working with people that you want to work with. Life wouldn't always present you with those perfect situations, but what are you able to make out of them, right? These are not skills that are for adults only. Students, children can begin to learn all of these skills. There's a touching story that I shared, and I think I should also share again about how that the child of Elon Musk, they don't attend the regular school. And this happened at the time where it was just about in year 8, right? GSS 2, right? He was in that class and he was given a task in a group. And because he was the leader of the group, he delegated the power of leadership to another person in the group. And then while they were reflecting, one of the anchors, guides, teachers that they had, I asked him that, why did you do that? You were supposed to lead this team. Why did you delegate your powers to another person to lead? Right? And he mentioned something that was very striking. Right? He said at that age, right, year 8, right, that's about 12, 13 years old. Right? He said that he has noticed that in time past, whenever he is under pressure, he doesn't seem to make the right decisions, right? But he noticed that there's someone in this group who seems to always make better decisions than myself whenever, this pressure situation, comes around. And so I thought that in the situation that we found ourselves at that point, it made more sense for me to step down and allow this person lead, because this person called better shots for the team, right? This was a GSS2 child talking, right? I mean, if I didn't watch that interview, and and not just the interview, because the person even did the recording and played back how he was explaining it, I would have thought maybe this was a 30-year-old or 35 or 40-year-old person talking, right? I never before that time seen that level of thoughtfulness. And that just opened my mind to a whole lot of possibilities. So what are we doing in Nigeria? Children can get to that point where they think at that level, right? That is someone that will get to that presidential seat and not be self-centered, right? I frown a whole lot on students not being able to work in groups. I frown a whole lot at it. My students know that, right? And so I invest a lot of time teaching them on how to work in groups, because I tell them that if you're unable to work with this person, particularly students who find themselves in a group with special needs kids, maybe kids with autism or some kind of special need, what's the name? And so I would normally tell them that if you are not able to work with this person today, what that means, what that is telling me is that the day you become the president, right, you would work in your cabinet based on merits. Now, that's the reason why in today's leadership, we have people that only want Hausas. So I'm an Hausa, I'm on seats. Everyone in my cabinet has to be Hausa, right? That's how tribalism got to the level that it started from the root level when these leaders that we have today were growing up. But for some reason, the teachers back then didn't spot it well enough. And that's why we need to talk that thing down. Whatever group you find yourself, you must learn to work effectively, right? Identify the strengths of the group and capitalize on the strengths. Don't emphasize so much on the weakness of the group. Some of us, even as adults, right? It's a workshop, right? So we should be able to correct those mindsets, right? You may even be reluctant to want to work with some teachers, right? For example, the fine arts teacher, you feel like fine art is a thing of the past, right? They don't hold water, or the Yoruba teacher or the language teachers, right? No, that's an idea, mindset that we need to kill in both ourselves and, of course, in the students that we teach, right? I know that the way our educational system is structured, our curriculum is structured, our educational practice is structured, we tend to favor more subjects than others. And so you find that in the hierarchy, you find subjects like in any school, you enter any school, just look at their list of subjects, you find math at the top and English, and then maybe sciences, either physics, chemistry, math, depending on the level, whether it's the elementary or the secondary level. You find, in that hierarchy, and you find subjects like fine arts, social arts, and all of those things, or the arts, really generally, whether it's the performing arts, social arts, and all of those things, you find them at the middle or at the bottom, right? Languages are given the least priority, but I mean, that should change. Those subjects should have as much priority as, the the math class. Someone, a very inspiring educator once said that, I dare to say that, now I'm quoting him now, I said, I dare to say that as we grow up, we educate students from their waist upwards, right? As they grow up, we begin to educate them from their waist or their legs upwards. And then the higher they are in the educational system, we just move a step above. So when they are in the kindergarten, right, they dance, they jump, they play, they sing, they use all parts of their bodies, right? When they get to the primary or the secondary level, they are only maybe using their hands waist up, right? When they get to the tertiary level, all they are doing is using their head, right, at most, right? And then when they decide to further their education, maybe become doctors or professors, right? All they do is in their head, and not just in their head, at, you know, to one side, one part of the head, right? Which is, you know, not too good, right? I mean, the other parts of your body are as, you know, as important as the brain, which is just one part. I mean, your hands can also be trained perfectly to do things, exceptional things, right? Your legs can be trained perfectly to do exceptional things, right? So I just thought to chip that in. Okay, so reflection, there has to be those times where you look at the quality of the work, how you overcame any obstacle that you may have faced, right? There has to be the critique and revision, which I mentioned yesterday, or in under STEM, right? Criticize your work, revise, receive feedback, learn to receive feedback, learn to give feedback, right? That's for every child. They must learn how to give feedback as a mandate, as a rule. I mandate in my class that every feedback you want to give about someone's work has to follow that sandwich method. It has to be positive, critical, and positive, no matter what it is, right? If I find any student or a student is being reported as just jumping to the critical part, right? You have one of two options, right? You rephrase or reframe your sentence, right? To inculcate all of those or three things, or you have the option of punishment. Now, we have several strategies of punishment that we use, that we employ in this, and I've seen that across the many schools, for example, that I consult for. So when I say punishment, I'm not just referring to cane, right? And thankfully, Lagos State, some other, I believe in some other states, if not all states, put a ban on caning, right, to a large extent, right? And lastly, making your product public, right? Making your product public, very important, right? Students have to make their product public. Now, when I say public, public is relative, right? It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to make it public to the government, right? Public can be on the assembly ground. It can be in another class, right? But it should be, the goal of making it public is that you should take them beyond the regular class, the friends that they have in that class that they see every day, day in, day out, right? That's one of the downfalls of projects, because your product always ends up in the class. You are presenting to the same faces. No, that presentation has to be to faces that are not the regular faces that they are comfortable with. That's another way you can even build their communication skills, right? So that product, whatever product that they come up with, whether it's a tangible product, a prototype, or a presentation, a panel discussion, a thorough look at the solutions that has been proposed to a particular problem versus the effectiveness of all of those solutions, right? The government said that they will do this. It's been 5 years. This is all we have seen them do, and so on and so forth. But they have to be making all of this presentation to faces that they are not regularly used to, that are not the regular faces that they see. So I mentioned that I was going to share another video. This is the other video that I mentioned, right? This was a PBL. It was done at a lower class, right? It was done at a lower class. but it does give an idea as to how PBL was achieved. Now, the title of this particular PBL block was, their big idea was the tiny house project, right? The tiny house project, and was done at a grade 3 level. And if you watch this particular video, I'm going to also share the link, right? Very inspiring video. You find how they meticulously infused other subjects, right? It wasn't just in math, right? In their literacy, they splitted it. There was a part where literacy where they had to read about houses, and some people were doing their work on a sheet of paper. Some people were doing their work on computers, and the dynamics of how the teacher infused or how the teacher carried out this particular PBL block. Right? It was an authentic problem, right? Because it was a particular problem that they were facing in San Jose, the particular community where they were in the United States there, right? They were looking at how to build efficient homes. And they even brought in an architect at some point to come and show them the layout, a blueprint of a building. And then the student went forward to make their presentation in groups. They presented it to the teacher. They had people coming to come and vet their work. They had people who came in, like pretend, right, to come and give them contract. Okay, I need a house. Can you be my interior decor? How do I decorate this house? How do I make this house fit all of my needs? Right. So they had those interviews with those people. They took down notes. Right. The teacher stressed at some point out that I made sure that when someone is talking, every other person is listening. Those are some of the things that that I had mentioned earlier when I talked about receiving feedback and giving feedback. Right. The student collected feedback from the people who were evaluating their work. Very, very interesting watch. And I would even dare say that if you go online and find some PBL projects, right, you're going to find several, right, detailed from beginning to end, and how the teachers, carry them out, which will even serve as an inspiration for you. Now, having said this, having mentioned all of this, this is going to bring us to the end of today's learning, right, on PBL. There remains for us a few things that we are yet to cover. Now, because I've done justice to what STEM is, I've done justice to what project-based learning is, right? But the practical application now in the classroom is now what is left for us to cover tomorrow. Now, there is something we call a PBL planner, right? Teachers here would understand a PBL planner as it is similar to the lesson note. It is not the lesson note. It is not a lesson note, right? Like the word suggests, it's a planner. It's supposed to help you guide all of the process of your PBL project, right? It is something that you can pick at any given point, and you are able to. It's sort of like a project management document, right? That's another similarity that it has, right? We're going to look at that tomorrow, and you will see in that document how the different subjects or different topics that you may have from maybe different teachers, or if you are teaching more than one subject, how these different topics can come together for one single purpose to solve a problem, right? That planner details everything. It even details the project, your hook, your starter, your opening event, your entry event, the materials that you'll be needing, and all of that, and all of those nitty-gritties, right? That's what we'll do tomorrow. So I would advise that we make it here on time tomorrow, because it may just be 5 minutes we'll be able to spare tomorrow. We're just going to hit the ground running, because there'll be so many things that we need to cover for that tomorrow's class, how to go about that planner, right? So at this point, let me open our channel up now for questions. Please feel free at this point to share your questions, and thank you again for listening. The attendance will be posted now. Yeah, it will be posted now. While that attendance is also being posted, I am going to also post the class exercise that I had mentioned. Right, I had mentioned that there's going to be an exercise at the end. Right, please do well to take this exercise. And of course, while the exercise, I'm putting up the exercise, I would also quickly get to the link that I posted earlier and activate it for people who want to access the link. It says there was an issue accessing it, so I'll open it up while I am on here doing this. Okay, I will try to resend it also. Right, I'm going to do everything. So let's just allow a few seconds. It will come up shortly. There's a feedback. Someone saying he or she would be happy if this can be included in the syllabus. Can you maybe provide more context? All right, so someone has, okay, I think this is Mrs. Amos. I think I remember that name. You can please unmute your mic, ma, and let's hear your question.
Okay, my question, sorry, I've been having a series of network interruptions. So, although yesterday I joined,
forgive me, I cannot. Can you just allow me maybe switch my audio device? I couldn't hear you clearly. You can go again, ma.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yes,
I said
yes, I
yesterday,
can now.
although I enjoyed yesterday's section, yeah, I enjoyed yesterday's section to a level. So where I got disconnected was where we were splitted into groups. I remember that was added. All I knew was after I was added, I didn't see myself in a group, and I didn't even really know what happened again. Maybe due to network yesterday. So I don't really know how I can follow up from yesterday's group work.
Okay. So for yesterday, the link for the entire recording was shared. Perhaps I believe it was shared on all groups. So if you did not receive it, maybe just do well to
Sorry?
just message any of the admins. It will be shared with you. There's a link. So wherever you left, either by network or whatever the case in, there's a link that was shared. That period was recorded. Right. So there's a link that was shared that you can use to rewatch. Right. All right. So having said that, please, if you look in the chat section now, you'll find the link to the quiz. Please click on that link, enter your name. Just click on the link and then you'll be prompted to enter a name. Please enter your name and then you'll be good to go. Please enter your name correctly. Um, I have so far 5 participants. I'm waiting for more people to join in. So far, we have 5 participants. Again, please don't end the meeting yet. The attendance link has also been posted. You would also need to fill that attendance link. This particular link is for the exercise, right? It's going to cover content from class yesterday and, of course, content from today. Right? I have 8 participants so far. All right, I'm just going to start. So everyone, if you look at your end now, already have I may suggest that, we take our time to answer the questions. We have 17 participants so far. Others are still trying to join. All right, please make sure that you have filled the attendance link before leaving.
Sorry, it's saying to log in to save quiz result. What does that entail?
Okay, so you don't need to save the result. Once you are done, right, you've answered all 10 questions. That's all that you need, right? That's all that you need to do, right? You can just exit the page, right? Except if maybe for curiosity, you just want to maybe sign up or for the platform, right? But other than that, you are fine, right? Everyone's response and everyone's answer have been collected and documented properly, right? From the reports
The
I'm
link
seeing
for the
now,
video you shared earlier is, I can't see it.
exactly. So that's the link. I'm on my drive now. If you allow is a few seconds, you can then retry, and then you find that the video should now be playable. So I'm on my drive presently. I'm only trying to find the folder where it's in. Again, if you are yet to fill the attendance, please do so before you leave. So once you are done with the quizzes and you've also filled the attendance, yes, please, we can call it a night at this point. Thank you for joining, right?